So, AEW Revolution 2025 is in the books, and honestly, if you're not planning on watching that show and you like the product that All Elite Wrestling puts out there, you should change that right now. In fact, what are you doing? Also, I have to apologize for my voice. I talked about this in AEW Revolution Ups and Downs as well, but you may not want to watch that, and you may stumble across this video. Somebody, that would be me, got kneed in the face during a wrestling match yesterday, and it caused my jaw to bite down on my tongue to the point it's now so swollen I can barely speak. Which isn't great because my job is essentially speaking. But it's all good because I am pumped up about professional wrestling because yes, at AEW Revolution, I think the biggest takeaway, aside from all the small things that we are getting into, is that All Elite Wrestling kind of just did a hard reset because they listened to the fans. And why? Well, I'm about to tell you. The first one is that we did get rid of Christian Cage's magical contract thingamajig that people have been talking about ever since he won it in August last year at All In 2024. Now listen, in my dream world, he would have screwed over Adam Copeland, which he did do, and he would have won that championship, and then Jay White would have done something. But again, that's neither here nor there, because none of these things did go down. But it's true, every time I would pop on social media or I would get into a discourse with some people about that contract, they were just like, well, it feels a bit too WWE and it's hanging over the head of the world title scene. And given that the AEW World Championship, when it comes to the men, is 9 times out of 10 going to a main event some shows, they don't want that gimmick, they don't want that novelty, they just want it to be people wrestling and going after a prize. So what did Tony Khan do? He sent Christian Cage down. I presume that this is now going to restart the feud with Adam Copeland, and you never have to worry about it again. If we do the casino gauntlet at this year's All In, maybe we don't even talk about contract. AEW does that too. Sometimes they just change their mind. So I think that's absolutely something that we should be grateful for, or at least you should be grateful for if you did want it to go. Because every chance, maybe at one point, Christian Cage was written down to become the AEW World Champion. And in fact, when Tony Khan signed him, he was like, man, this dude is underrated. I agree with that too. Even to this day, we do not put the respect on Christian Cage's name. The dude is flipping brilliant. But if that is not the way the cookie crumbles and that's not the way the water is flowing, absolutely, you should always be down to pivot and do different things. I mean, look at what happened at WrestleMania 40 for great evidence of that. And now, it seems, just ties into our other hard reset, that we looked through all our contenders and said, listen, all right, Jon Moxley, he is going to hold that world title for a little bit longer, but do you know who his challenger needs to be right here, right now? Swerve Strickland. Because he did indeed beat Ricochet after a brilliant match. Those two have such good chemistry. But it's not like we left it there. It's not like, oh my gosh, he is the number one contender, but maybe we have to sort some other things out first. When Revolution was going off the air, Swerve basically became Batman. He jumped off a balcony and he attacked Jon Moxley, and Prince Nana helped Strickland do the distracting too. So quite clearly they are an entity again. Prince Nana has his robe back. So now Swerve should come out on Dynamite and be like, that's right, Jonathan, I'm coming after your ass. And the reason this is doubly exciting as well is because I do believe the next AEW pay-per-view is only in a few weeks. So I say just do it, man. Pull the trigger, get down in the weeds, and Swerve Strickland, come May, well, he should be a 2-time AEW World Champion. I mean, if nothing else, listen to how the crowd reacts to him, but also, he's just the dude, he's just the man. He proved that when he won the title for the first time, and given the Death Rider storyline kind of sort of flibbles around a little bit, if you do need someone to walk in and go, ha ha, I'm going to stop it, you absolutely should let it be Swerve, because he will then even be more over. Listen, sometimes I just want a babyface champion as the main guy. I don't really have any other words. I've already said it about 4 times, but that dude is absolutely Swerve. It also actually tells a wonderful long-term story, because when he did lose it to Bryan Danielson back at that show All In, a lot of people were like, well, I do get it, but I hope Swerve re-enters that scene at some point. And here we are, a long-ass time later. Well, it hasn't happened. And it's not like AEW made it clear that that was going to be on the cards, but also we just made sure that he always had a story in place, because of course he did everything with the Hangman, and then he moved on to Ricochet with some stuff in between, and he would talk about it in promos. This is why it's so good, and maybe All Elite Wrestling is thinking longer term than we give them credit for, because Prince Nana would be like, listen, Swerve, you absolute goof, you need to get back into that world title picture. He'd be like, that's true, but I hate Ricochet so much I have to kill him first. The fact that we finally got back here and arguably put Swerve in a better position than he was anyway, I just think it's bloody fantastic. Also, in August 2024, in order to make Bryan Danielson's win as big as it needed to be, Strickland was playing the bad guy, and now you zoom forward to here and he is just a mega over babyface again. This is your guy, this is your dude, this is the person you should crown. All of this obviously went down at AEW Revolution. AEW have even ensured now Adam Copeland could probably move away from his current position because he needs to go and end this beef with Christian Cage. If we're not going to do another match between them, we are losing our minds. When that is done, you have drawn a line under it, of course they can come back together as a tag team. And that is probably going to get a lot of interest and maybe even helps the ratings, you never know these days. Because Edge and Christian are a legendary act. And sure, maybe you're like, oh man, I've seen that, I don't want to see it again. You're allowed to say that. But this bald idiot is one of the things I'm most excited for in sports entertainment at the moment. Pretty much because I'm basically in love with those two. And you could start them out as heels. I mean, either Adam has to forgive Christian, or Christian has to forgive Adam. And that's going to be a major part of that story. I also cannot see a world where Swerve Strickland doesn't beat Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship, because that would really be a silly thing to do. Like, you know, most people I think are done with the Death Riders and want them to shift left while we shift right. So that's why we've anointed Swerve. That's why he finally beat Ricochet. So it is one of the criticisms you've had about the product. Maybe you're about to get a bright new dawn. Now you would have to imagine that maybe a Claudio or a Wheeler Yuta or a Jon Moxley round 2 has to come soon after that. But we do have enough time and we do have enough shows, given that I do stand here in March 2025 and we still consider All In our WrestleMania, for lack of a better term. Well, we probably should have plans for it. Now, given that Hangman Adam Page also beat MJF, which puts him in a fabulous position, I think when we do get to Texas, it may very well be Swerve versus Hangman for the AEW World title. And given their history, that's going to be absolutely redonkulous. But what else happened on Revolution? Kenny Omega is the brand new international champion. Okada retained his continental title. They can meet out there as well. You can reunite those belts or merge those belts, whatever the flub you want to call it, because we do have too many championships in wrestling. And that brings us back to the title of this video. That's a pretty damn good hard reset. And it all happened last night. There's an outlier to all of this as well, because of course Will Ospreay defeated Carl Fletcher in one of the most insane steel cage matches I've ever seen in my life. And he has to be on the cusp of it as well. If he's not fighting for the world title soon, what the flub are we doing? But that probably just means before we get to All In, somebody's going to be like, hey man, look at me over here, to distract him. And then when we come out of that Texas show, let's say Swerve does retain, you can start doing Swerve Strickland versus Will Ospreay. Or you can give Hangman the belt and do William Ospreay versus Hangman. What did Will say in interviews recently? Oh, I would love to fight the cowboy. In many ways, he feels like the main character in AEW. And look, I don't want to be that dude. Wrestlers sometimes don't say things. They're doing a bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It also ties into something that AEW has been doing recently, which is just to continue to extend the list of people who could justifiably challenge for that AEW World title. We haven't even talked about Jay White, who did accidentally bonk Adam Copeland on the head. Maybe that's going to tie in too. Well, at the same time, maybe that could be the reason Adam Copeland and Christian Cage get back together. Something is brewing. And in fact, if E and C, can't even call them that anymore, aren't together by August, I won't do anything. Not that important, it's just wrestling. I also think if Swerve Strickland does defeat Jon Moxley, you then can split up the Death Riders. I mean, it was a worthwhile endeavor, and for a couple of months it was working. But I think it's fair to put our hands up now and say, well, at some point, we did lose our mojo, and that's fine. You just don't want to extend it too much. Because ultimately, when you do have 52 weeks of wrestling in a year, because it never stops, you got to throw things at a wall. And if they don't stick, or if they kind of stick on a little bit and then start to fall, you just listen to the fans. And once again, you do a hard reset. I could be totally wrong. We get 6 months down the line and we look back to AEW Revolution and go, well, nothing's changed. But then we'll make another video, and damn it, we'll go on the internet and complain. I just think that's why we did do all the shenanigans in the main event, and why we ensured people were like, listen, don't worry about that too much. It was Swerve being the last person on the show that we did see, because he's about to step back into that role. And if anything, he's even better now than he was last year. I know people praise Strickland a lot, but it's still not enough. That's how good I think he is. The fact that Kenny Omega and Okada could be on the undercard as well almost sounds offensive me saying it. But what has everyone been saying about Kenny since he did return? Oh my gosh, we need to see him in this position. Obviously, Takeshita went after his tum-tum for the majority of that match. Kenny Omega is too clever to do that for the next few months. So once again, come the summer, he will probably be back to being, I don't know, final boss in Final Fantasy Kenny Omega. And if he is the guy to merge those titles, well, I tell you, man, the next 6 months, or the latter part of 2025, could be absolutely mad. That's only going to help all your championships even more. So I actually think that AEW Revolution could go down in the history books as something even bigger than we first realized. And that, my friends, I think is wonderful. I'm also going to be that guy, so please do forgive me. But given how good Elimination Chamber was, and given how good the last 7 days in wrestling was, and given how good AEW Revolution was, we are eating good. I love pro wrestling right now, and even though that makes me a positive Pete and an absolute idiot, that's how I feel. I am very excited for the rest of 2025. Now I'm just going to round the video up because my mouth hurts so much you have no idea. Please interact with this video as much as possible. Click the video on the screen and I'll try and see you throughout the week. Maybe my tongue falls out. Sounds like a crappy stipulation that Vince McMahon would have come up with. Wrestling has sucked sometimes. Goodbye.